What's up, guys? Swifty here covering everything Chicago Bears. Today I'm talking about Bears players who need to show up versus the Browns or have their jobs on the line. Let's get into it. First up is defensive end Sam Camara. Camara has been impressive through two preseason games so far, leading the team with 9 pressures. He is now putting pressure on the coaching staff to keep him around. We are deep at defensive end with Robert Quinn, Al-Quadin Muhammad, Trevis Gibson, Dominique Robinson, and Mario Edwards Jr. To me, for Camara to make the roster, it would mean that we possibly move on from Mario Edwards Jr. Let's talk about him next. I have had Mario as a lock to make the roster all along, but he has yet to make any kind of impression, and Sam Camara's emergence might put Edwards' roster spot in jeopardy. It's hard to tell how the coaches feel about Mario at this point, but I think he still might need to make some kind of impression this weekend. However, after missing practice again today, once again, I don't think he plays. I still don't know what's going on with Mario Edwards Jr. Next up is Zachary Thomas. Thomas has been overlooked throughout most of camp after being an early favorite to win the right guard job. He has gotten off to a slow start, but graded out very well last weekend, and I loved what I saw from him on tape. I think Thomas should make the roster, but we have more depth on this line than we have had in years, so it's not a given, and Thomas needs to come out and have a good game to make sure the coaching staff keeps him around. Next up is our boy Dieter Iceland. Dieter looked great on tape last week at center. His body type looks natural for the position, and he generated a lot of push against Seattle. I am currently breaking down his tape. He needs to have a big game if he wants to make the roster. We have a lot more depth on the line this year, so just like Zachary Thomas, Dieter is battling for one of those final spots. To me, he looked better than Sam Mustipher did last week. I'll touch more on that in my breakdown, but I'll have my eyes on Dieter this weekend for sure. And then we get to the wide receivers. First up, I'm going to talk about Dante Pettis, who has flashed occasionally throughout camp and even in the preseason. He is one of the more talented receivers we have on the roster, and if he can make some more plays this weekend, he has a good chance to earn a roster spot. The other guys who are battling for a spot are guys like Isaiah Coulter, Nasimba Webster, Chris Finke, and Kevin Shaw. This is the last chance for one of these guys to separate himself and stand out to make this roster. So keep an eye on the wide receivers this weekend. Similar to wide receiver in some ways, we have a few cornerbacks that are locks for the roster, but the last spot or two are also up for grabs. This is assuming that Thomas Graham Jr. is already a lock even with his hamstring issue. I see Tavon Young, Lamar Jackson, Duke Shelley, and Greg Stroman Jr. all battling it out for the final spot or two. Lamar Jackson has impressed me the most so far, and I'm hoping he makes the roster. He's young and talented, so keep an eye out for him this weekend. With the linebackers as well, we have our starters pretty much established. The backups are fighting for jobs. I think Jack Sanborn and DeMarquise Gates have both done enough to make this team, but I expect them both to get a lot of playing time this weekend, and we'll be looking for both guys to continue making plays. Also, Caleb Johnson needs to make an impact this weekend as well. This can pretty much be said for every backup position group. At defensive tackle, guys like Mike Pennell Jr., Trayvon Coley, Micah Treadway are battling for a roster spot. And then at safety, Elijah Hicks is battling with Dane Cruikshank and others. At offensive line, our starters have solidified thus far, but those guys have to continue to play well this weekend, and there are a lot of jobs on the line behind them. We also have backup running backs and tight ends fighting to make the roster, but those positions seem pretty locked. So it'll take a surprise to shake things up there. We have a huge roster cut down coming next Tuesday, and the Bears have a ton of decisions to make. So this weekend is the players' last chance to stand out and make an impression and stick on this final roster. Even making the 53 doesn't guarantee you anything, as polls may continue searching outside of the organization for additional talent. So stay tuned. There will be a lot happening between now and opening day. I have tons of videos planned for this weekend and coming up to get you guys through until opening day. Stay tuned. Hit that like button for me. And until next time, Bear down.